what's going to be happening over the next 7 weeks, because I'm about to go on a pilgrimage where I think a big part of it is going to be about me not being online. I'm going to take my phone, obviously, and I may well do some live streaming. So it's going to be just sort of ad hoc, possibly not very much in the first 10 days because I'm going to be with other people. Although I'm going to be recording podcasts, because normally today at 2 o'clock I was doing some sort of podcast interview things on Zoom, which has been going well. It's been kind of like me sort of testing out how to do it and how it works. And now I'm much clearer in what my questions are and what the aim of the podcast is when I'm on the road. So I've got a microphone that I'll plug in, that I'll do the podcast interviews while I'm on the road. So they won't be going live, and I will be letting you know when they do become like available online. But they won't be like filmed. So then I'll also be, so I think what I'm going to do is just go live on Twitch whenever I'm able to, and just chat about what my experiences are and what's going on. So that's going to be ad hoc. And then I'll also be doing like I'll make them into videos and share them on Patreon and YouTube. But yeah, and I'll do some exclusive, because I'm going to be discovering things about St Michael and St George along the way. So there's kind of 3 threads to what I'm doing. There's the hunting and exploring and looking for the St George and St Michael through line, and what that teaches me. And that's kind of about the land and love for the land and the sacredness of this beautiful island. And then there will be talking about grief and thinking about grief in terms of like grief for people, personal griefs that we might have, but then also grief for the world, or grief for the world that's now gone, for opportunities and things that we were hoping were going to happen that aren't going to happen now, that kind of thing. And then also what they wonder about the future, like, you know, what their wonders, what do they wonder? And there will be, when I look at the St George stuff, it will be about the idea of the enemy as well, and how we create our enemies. So that's kind of part of the St George St Michael bit. So there's those different elements, and they're now like going to be incorporated into the podcast, and then just my musings and what I'm kind of looking out for along my way. So I'll share insights as they come up and that kind of thing. There's also the masculine and feminine aspect, because it's a masculine and feminine ley line, and it calls on you when you walk this line to kind of bring into balance the masculine and feminine in you. And if you've been following my videos, you'll know that actually I feel very much like I'm a man trapped in a woman's body, and I've spent my life working on the female part of me, developing myself as a woman, becoming a woman. And now I feel like I have done that to a point where now I feel like a woman. I don't feel like a man trapped inside anymore, but I definitely came to this life with a male soul. So I feel trans, like I do feel trans, but I feel like I've so embraced the female experience that I feel like I've worn my soul into being female now. Now I'm really interested in exploring who this man is that I came into this world as. Well, who is this toxic man that I carry with me? So doing some work on him will be interesting. But yeah, it's the idea of like how we create our enemies, how like the play of St George and his many enemies is him. So he, like, if you didn't have the enemies, the play would just be St George hangs out, like some stuff happened, like, you know, nothing happens really. He just sort of, it's just St George hanging out, having a nice time. That's not a play, that's not interesting. For there to be drama, there needs to be conflict. And so we live in a world where we kind of like try and pretend there isn't any conflict, and we want to like, we don't want to admit to any kind of darkness or any issues that are going on. We want to pretend that we're getting on and everything's great. But like, you need conflict for stuff to happen. Without it, it's boring. And actually we should embrace that conflict is a very necessary part of life, but that it swings from like conflict being really bad, like Holocaust, World War II kind of stuff, to like conflict being a bit more chilled and a bit more like we're all kind of getting on, but like not everyone's getting on all the time, but we're basically getting on, to like we're really not getting on. So it kind of swings, you know, and that's kind of like summer and winter. And at the moment we're in a bit of a wintry phase, and it might get more wintry, but we always are trying to like bring it back to the summer. But it will become summer again. So it's that idea that this too shall pass. And so St George and His Many Enemies is a play about St George creating enemies to fight with, to have these conflicts with, that always leads to death. So St George dies and he represents the land. So it will reach a point where like the land has to die, like metaphorically, to then be reborn again and start again and kind of start from a nice place again. So he keeps creating his enemies, and the first one's the dragon, which represents like his inner world. It's the Cain and Abel thing where you kill your abilities, you kill your twin, thinking that you're like getting rid of the bad stuff that will just leave the good stuff behind, but you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and actually you're like you're killing your best bit. Your thinking thinks it was the bit to kill, but actually neither of them need to be killed. You want both of them. They're a relationship. So you're actually damaging yourself by doing that. And so that's the dragon. Then he fights with Beelzebub, and Beelzebub's like kind of like our perceived notions of evil out in the world. So like the feeling that there's this like evil dark devil that's out there that's going to come and get you. And then there's Mary Tinker, who's the strumpet, and she's female sexuality. She's the goddess. So it's like fear of the goddess, fear of the female power. And then there's the Saracen Knight, and the Saracen Knight is a Turkish knight, a Muslim knight. So it's about the, you know, Muslims, about immigration, it's about people of colour, it's creating like an enemy out of the other. And so you've got these enemies that St George creates, and then you then have a play, and the play is St George fighting these enemies. But it's like Mario and Luigi in Mario World. They're all part of Mario World. Like they might think that they're separate characters, they might think they have autonomy, but they don't. They exist within Mario World. St George creates these enemies within the play, and he might think that he's like separate to them, but actually they're all part of the play of St George and His Many Enemies. We're all part of the play of life. We're in this bubble that was, the whole universe used to fit into the size of a watermelon, and then it went, and it's like a game downloaded, and then everything that happens within that universe is the game of life, and we're within it. All of us are within it, and we're all part of the same thing. We're all one and part of this thing called the game of life, and we're not separate entities at all. And this whole dynamic of like there's Trump and there's, I don't know, Putin, and there's Boris Johnson, and there's us, and there's like whoever like you've got out there, we're creating them, and they're characters within the game that we're playing. And it's useful to see it like that, because it stops it being so scary, and it stops it being a thing that's all happening at you that you've got no control over. And it just means that we're kind of participating sort of voluntarily in a game that we've all kind of taken part in for some reason, you know. And part of the thing is that you don't remember that it's a game, and you play it like your life depends on it. But it kind of makes it more fun when you start thinking of it like that. And so that's like part of this pilgrimage, is us looking at St George and how he creates these enemies, and then he gets killed and is resurrected, and that means the land gets resurrected. And we're kind of going through that process at the moment where we've created these enemies, we're fighting them. At some point we'll really kind of screw up and be forced to like die metaphorically and go, oh right, hang on a minute, that was not okay, so what are we going to do differently this time? How are we going to improve? And it is like, you know, there's a saying, why do we see before us nothing but despair when behind us there's nothing but progression? And I love that, and it's true. It's like we have like less child mortality, less people living in poverty, longer life expectancy than we've ever had in history. So things are better now than they've ever been. It's just that there's also plenty of work to still do. So it's a spiral. We're currently going through a bad patch, which is like the winter, and then it will come back round to summer again at some point. But it is moving forward, so it is a spiral. So it is heading in the right direction. It's just that we're doing it cyclically, and we're having to learn our lessons along the way. And just like a human, we have to keep learning the same lessons. Like, you know, the macro and the micro always are connected. It's fractal, isn't it? So yeah, at the moment we're 21 years old, it's the 21st century, and we've just started to realise that this mess that we've made Mum's not going to clear up. In fact, when Mum catches us and sees the mess that we've created, she's going to chuck us out. And we've just woken her up and she's coming down the stairs, and that's the feminine rising. So we need to clear up quick, sort our shit out, and take responsibility. So yeah, I'm going to be going on this pilgrimage, and it's going to be 7 weeks long, and I leave on Friday, and I'm walking from the most western point in the UK in Land's End to the most eastern point on the Norfolk Coast in East Anglia, and it's going to take me 7 weeks, and I'll be walking through 120 sacred sites that are all kind of linked to St Mary or St Michael, who's also kind of St George. They both slay dragons, and yeah, so I'll be walking through like pagan sites and Christian sites. It's going to be really powerful. So I'm doing a ceremony tonight where we're going to be blessing 2 stones. That I'll put one stone on the western point, and then when I get to the eastern point, I'll put the other stone. So we're going to charge this power connection between these stones with what we want to kind of heal the earth with, heal this country with, post Brexit, post coronavirus, post all the shit in the world that's going on, and just yeah, like as if we're pulling this kind of like bandage kind of thing over the country and giving it some healing love. And it's like, what do we want to charge that with? And I'm going to put those stones down, and also like some protection blessings for me, just to make me feel like people have got my back and that they'll be thinking about me. It's going to be quite scary. I'm going to be on my own. I'm going to be wild camping. I'm going to be sleeping in some churches. I'm staying with lots of friends and some Airbnbs and some campsites. So that's going to be lovely. It's been gorgeous, boiling hot sunshine. I think all the thunder and lightning and rain is going to kick off just as I leave on Friday, which is typical. But it will still be wonderful. Kind of, I'm expecting rain. It's 7 weeks in England. It's going to rain at some point, isn't it? So yeah, the program of regular events on Twitch won't be regular. I will just go live randomly at certain points whenever I'm able to, and just share with whatever is happening. So what I'll do is I will post on Facebook that I'm about to go live. So if you want to know and you want to follow that, then go to the Luna Coven on Facebook and join the group, and that's where I'll post to let you know that I'm about to go live. So hopefully, yeah, you'll see a lot of me. I just won't know what the schedule is, because it will completely depend on when I've got signal and when I'm able to. So if you want to support, I'm doing a fundraiser. I mean, I was doing it anyway, and then someone pointed out that I could raise some money for charity. So I've got a fundraising crowdfunder thing running at the moment, and that's on the Luna Coven page, and it's for, I'm going to give some of the money to a guy who's a shaman who did an ayahuasca ceremony for me in my 20s that completely healed me and made me better when I was really ill. And he's an amazing man, and he's from Colombia. He's a proper Colombian shaman from the Kugi tribe, which is one of the the Kugi tribe's been around since before what was his name, the Spanish explorer who found South America and completely screwed everything. Pizarro, I think his name is. But anyway, before he arrived, the Kugi tribe, a direct lineage, like they've been around since before that. So they're like kind of an untouched First People tribe that still exists in Colombia. And he's been like doing the ayahuasca ceremonies and like what you'd call ayahuasca tourism, to support them as a tribe buying their mountain and their forest. So and now at the moment there isn't any tourism, and so they've got no money. So I want to give some of the money to him. And then also, when I was in Australia earlier this year, I found this incredible Aboriginal art centre in Adelaide, and it's the oldest Aboriginal art centre in the world. And it was the first year that they'd put on a programme of events in the Adelaide Fringe Festival, which just really blew my mind. Like, the Adelaide Fringe Festival is celebrating its 80th anniversary. It's the longest running fringe festival in the world. And then this art centre was 30 years old. And so in 30 years, no one in the Adelaide art scene said to the Aboriginal art centre, hey, you guys should totally put a programme of events on in our fringe. Like, of course you should. Like, we've nicked your land. Like, how was that kind of confidence not instilled? Or like, what barriers were there that meant that people running that art centre felt that they couldn't be included in a fringe festival that's been running on their doorstep for 30 years? It just blew my mind. But it was absolutely brilliant. The programme of work they put on was amazing, and it was the only thing that had any soul in it in the whole of Australia. I fucking hate Australia. Sorry, anyone who's from Australia, but bloody hell, I hate that place. So yeah, it's just shocking the way the divide still between white Australian settlers and the first people that live there. Like, yeah, it's shocking. So I want to give some of the money to the art centre to help support them continue having amazing programmes of work in future fringe festivals, and maybe even get to be in the international like main festival. Ooh, that'd be a crazy idea. So yeah, so if anyone wants to support that, that'd be amazing. And that's on my crowdfunder, which is on my Facebook page and on the Luna page. And yeah, so I'm going on Walkabout. That's what I'm doing. So that's really exciting. And it's interesting thinking about ley lines, because I'm not really, I've never really thought about them or what they are. But the idea, and it makes sense to me, is that pre things being there, like towns and cities, you know, like early days when we were sort of hunter-gatherer wandering folk, that we were more in tune with like what were kind of migratory paths, which when you think of how birds and animals know the same migratory paths that they do each time, there's some sort of magnetic paths around the planet or whatever. It might even just be habit, it might not even be linked to any magnetic anything, but just that's the route that you take. And birds do it, fish do it, you know, mammals do it. And we were doing it, and we had these migratory lines that we passed along, that we kept passing along, and then we started building like sacred monuments and sites and things along those lines, and then we began to build villages and towns and stuff along those lines, and then we built churches, and so all of those things. So the St Michael and St Mary ley line that I'm walking along goes from west to east, and it's like, if you're coming from Europe, and the UK did used to be joined, there was Diggerland, which was before the sea came in and put it underwater. We were connected, and if you look at the line, it's like from the most connected bit, like the first bit that hits Europe, it's just the line from there down to the like most westerly point. So we've been walking up and down that across the UK for millennia. So it just makes sense that that's where all the sacred sites and stuff are. But what is mad is that some of these sacred sites are like exactly on the line, and it's a straight line, and they're like hundreds of miles apart. So that's mad. It's like, how did they, in terms of engineering, get it so precisely in the right place? It's interesting. Who knows? Who knows? So yeah, going to do that and see what energy I feel from that experience, what comes up. Walking that migratory path in the footsteps of so many ancestors is going to be cool. And I'm kind of walking home from west to east. I grew up in East Anglia, that's where I'm from. So I'm going to be walking home. Very exciting. So yeah, I'll keep you up to date with what's happening, and let you know about my adventures as they go along, and I'll show you some of the churches and sacred sites whenever I remember to get my phone out and go live. So watch this space, and yeah, keep connected through Facebook, and yeah, I'm very much looking forward to not being part of this outer world bullshit, because I'm sick of the fucking bullshit of this game that we're being told to play of the outer world. Not interested in it. Done with it now. So I just thought I might go and hide in like the real world, in nature, for 7 weeks, and then see what charade is going on when I come back. Hopefully Boris Johnson and Trump will have just disappeared in a puff of smoke. That'd be nice. Probably won't, but at least I'll have a bit of a respite. So yeah, big love, and I shall see you soon. Take care.